Okay, so our next session will be the blockchain technology, disrupting the art markets by Elena Zavelev, so the founder and CEO of New Arts Academy. Elena has been successful developed educational programs since 2009. In 2017, Elena launched the New Arts Academy, an innovative approach in fusion continuing education and a panel of experts all around the New York City. Now please welcome Elena.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good to be here this afternoon. So I'm going to be speaking about something, I guess, that's very different from the other presentations that you hear here today. I'm going to talk about the art market and how blockchain technology is actually influencing it. Just the first question to the audience, maybe, are you following the art market? Do you follow the sales? What's going on? Sometimes, a little bit. Yeah, so the art sales overall, the most significant sign is that the prices are rising tremendously, right? You can see, for example, last week the Rockefeller sale got over 800 million US dollars. Next week we'll have Sotheby's sale where Modigliani is estimated at a low estimate is $150 million. So the market is there. It's almost $64 billion today. And blockchain technology is hopefully gonna help to make it a little more transparent. So a couple of words about myself. I've been working in the art market for the past 10 years, mostly in more traditional spaces. I worked at Christie's, I worked at online marketplaces, and then recently founded this company that's really doing the education, lectures, panel discussions, conferences on art, blockchain, and technology for the art market and beyond. Blockchain in the art market is really fascinating because the market is very conservative. So at first it was even strange to see that it's happening, but it is really happening. So first of all, to give you a little bit of a background, I want to show you why we actually need blockchain in the art market, because really, why? So first of all, the art market is very unregulated, where over 50% of sales are not public. So in fact, you really don't know whether the sale has taken place, for how much something has been sold. Therefore, this can really hurt the market of the artist because you don't know the original price, you don't know the resale price, so you don't know the fair value of the artwork really well. It also promotes fakes and forgeries, and you can see if any of you following the art news, which I don't know, but almost every week news comes up in the museums that over 50% of the works in the museums even can be fake, which is really, really dangerous. So the blockchain technology becomes this great tool to create an immutable ledger that cannot be changed, hopefully, with the provenance records, authenticity records, and so on. And what is the provenance for the art market? It's a chain of ownership, right? Who owned what, how much everything has been sold for, and so on. Then the next opportunity for blockchain in the art market is actually belongs to the artists, because perhaps, again, many of you heard the stories of the artists who create beautiful masterpieces and then die young and poor because they didn't really get any money for their work. So the opportunity with the blockchain is the following. First, you can track who created the work, therefore allowing the royalties for the works of art, right? So when something gets resold, the artist actually gets the royalty for the work of art that he or she created. Then the tokenization is another opportunity because it gives people, artists, potentially an opportunity to own a stake in their own artwork, which is quite fascinating, I think. So with the resale of the work of art, with the price going up, the artist will actually get some money out of this resale. Then the potential for lowering the transaction costs and avoiding the middleman. Again, in the news, you can read a lot of stories that an art advisor has sold a work of art to a collector, which he bought for at a much lower price, and then resold it to the collector at much higher price, which is definitely not a very ethical approach to buying and selling works of art. So with this provenance ledger, all of this can be simplified and quite made much more ethical and beneficial for all of the parties. Then democratization of the art investments. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the prices in the art market, especially for the blue chip works of art, and blue chip are really popular trophy assets that everybody wants to get, the prices for them skyrocket. So they're in the millions of dollars. But then, you know, art, I'm not sure how you feel about it, but art is definitely becoming one of the alternative assets for the people to invest in. So what the companies do, for example, the company called Macines is tokenizing works of art. So it's taking the work of art, breaking it in many different tokens, and people are able to invest in it, like in the shares of the works of art. So now, say, Leonardo da Vinci's painting that was sold at Christie's for $450 million this fall, you could potentially, if it's tokenized, you could own a little fragment of that, which becomes quite cool, I think. And then again, it gives an opportunity for the artist to own a little token, not to Leonardo da Vinci, but maybe to his estate and so on. And the lack of transparency, I put it here just because the market is super opaque and non-transparent. So blockchain at least can give some opportunity for it to become a little bit more transparent. So these are the opportunities and why it's needed. Now here, since I'm here with the audience who probably, I just want to introduce some of the players in the art market that you need to learn about and how they would benefit from the blockchain technology. So first and foremost, collectors, right? People who collect art for their pleasure, they buy what they love, but they still want to buy something that's valuable and they potentially want to make a little money on it. And even if they don't, they still want to know that this Leonardo da Vinci is authentic. So for them, that's really important. Investors, lowering the entry level right into the investment. You don't have to pay 100 millions, but you can pay just, I don't know, as little as $100 probably to enter it. Then traditional and online marketplaces. So what are the marketplaces in the art market? We all know about the auction houses, right? The big auction houses, Sotheby's and Christie's. They are conservative, but they're getting more and more in line with the technology. So one of the important technologies used by the auction houses is online sales. Today, online sales take about 8% of the global art market, which is about 64 billion, so 8% of that, which is quite small, but then it's growing, and the potential for it to grow with the blockchain technology is actually increasing. Because even today, we see quite a few of new marketplaces, online marketplaces that are based on blockchain technology that are coming up to the market. They are right now mostly involve digital art or crypto art, which I will mention later in this presentation, but still, they're coming up. And also online marketplaces, online platforms like Artsy, maybe someone heard, and so on. And of course, the artists. So the artists, opportunity for them to get paid, to take benefit of the resale prices, but also a big opportunity for the digital artists. So if you think about it, digital art is very easy to recreate, right? It's super easy to copy and then to post it, and you don't need much technology for it, and you don't need to acknowledge the artist who actually created the artwork. So with the blockchain technology, it's really helping the digital artists. They can put the authenticity of the art on blockchain. You can track the ownership. They can see what's going on with the art. And all of it creates scarcity, right? So now there are not that many copies of this digital work of art, but just as many as the artist has intended, which is great. So again, all of that, I guess, what we need to know. So provenance is one of the key things that blockchain technology is used for as of today. It's the registry of the title, registry of the chain of ownership, and so on. Peer-to-peer transactions is something that is not used very actively yet, but could be. Because right now, since the market is so opaque, even if you go to Sotheby's or Christie's, it's not as straightforward to sell or to buy the work, to buy a work of art. You have to pass through multiple very complicated registration process. There are interviews that they take, they inspect the work of art, and so on. So with peer-to-peer transactions, but verified peer-to-peer transactions, this can be seriously simplified. So if we know that the work of art is really authentic and someone wants to sell it to me at a fair price, why not? Why do I need to go to an art advisor, to Sotheby's or Christie's? Then tokenization. So tokenization is a very interesting subject, and breaking up. It's not a new field in the art market. Buying and selling shares in the works of art. People have been playing with this idea for about 10 years, I would say now. But also with the stock exchanges, it's been very difficult. With tokenization, hopefully, it's going to be simplified. And then crypto collectibles is another interesting class that has appeared very recently. And it's art that's either inspired by the blockchain technology, crypto community, currency, and so on, or just digital art that actually is put on blockchain to track it. So some of the famous crypto collectibles that maybe you've heard about are crypto kitties. And the crypto kitties, so I spoke with my colleague yesterday was an ethereal conference where a new crypto kitty was sold for $140,000. And the crypto kitty, for those of you who don't know, it's a game, it's a cat that lives on blockchain, you can breed it. The early editions of the cats are more expensive than the later, and so on. So here is an interesting philosophical question if it's art or if it's a game and so on. They call it art, actually. There are a couple of others that I will show you at the end. So going into the companies that are actually working with this, I wanted to show you a few examples of the companies that they are already in the market and they're working with the blockchain technology and maybe useful for you for your further research. So one of them is Veris Art. Veris Art was founded by Robert Norton, who's been a long-time art market player. And it's pretty much used to create digital certifications of the works of art for the artists, and then the certifications are recorded on blockchain. It's one of the older companies, and it's now forming new partnerships, one of which with Padel8, which is an online auction house. So they're going to be working together with Veris Art, verifying the works of art, and Padel8 helping with online auctions. Artery is another interesting example. It was founded by the chairman of TIFAF, Nan Dekin. So also very coming from a more conservative part of the art market. TIFAF is one of the oldest and biggest art fairs in the world. So what they're creating is a registry for the provenance for the artworks. The interesting fact about them that they don't get the information from the artists or from the collectors, but they are working with the vetted companies. So if the transaction took place at the vetted auction house that they're working in, the information goes into their registry. Codex Protocol is a newer company on the block, but they're doing very well. They were founded to become the registry for the titles of the work of art. As you can imagine, in the art world, there is no one standard title registry for the works of art, which can really, again, hurt everybody that's involved. Moreover, based on them, you can build, for developers, you can build applications. For example, they're building their own application called Biddable, which will be live later this year. So there you would be able to participate in online auction and pay with the cryptocurrencies, which is a very new idea for the art market. So we'll see how it goes. But they want their open source code, so in theory you can build application based on that. And then Mecenas is one of the major players in the tokenization field. So as far as I know, they're still the biggest player on the market. There are a few guys that are trying to follow their example, but they're, one of the problems with tokenizing works of art, you actually need to have the work of art to tokenize them. So they have a pretty good network of partners that they're working with, and they're helping them to get the artworks to tokenize them. But they're very interesting. They're based in Singapore and Switzerland. And these are some digital art blockchain companies. So one of them, which I'm very fond of, is Dada.nyc. They just got an investment from Consensus just 2 days ago or a day ago, which is pretty cool. They have a very different concept from what I described earlier. So they're a social media platform that's specifically designed for the digital artists. So the artists create collaborative work of art right on that platform. And then the work of art is recorded on blockchain, and they also have a marketplace to sell it. So the artists talk with each other on the platform, create art together, and then it's being sold. And the authenticity is proven thanks to blockchain. Rare Pepe is another example. It's a very fun example. They are one of the marketplaces for the digital art. And there, as you can see by this picture, the question whether it's art or not is even more current. But anyway, it's a very interesting platform. And these are a couple of crypto collectibles that I think it's valuable if you know about them. So one of them is CryptoKitties. There are now businesses around CryptoKitties actually that support this. For example, Crypto Hats that actually design the accessories for the kitties. And then they're building separate different marketplaces where a lot of different crypto animals you can buy and collect different crypto animals. And CryptoPunks is a little bit different group. But has been created on the same principle, but with a little bit different set of rules. So I think this pretty much covers what I wanted to say about art and blockchain today. We do, as New Art Academy, we do sessions with art and blockchain businesses quite often. So we do them at least once a month. We're also going to, I don't know if anybody is going to be in Switzerland this summer. We are going to Art Basel, and we are going to have a great conversation there about art and blockchain as well. We also have something available online. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have.
This is almost like a tutoring some of us. How do you prevent fake and false art? Using blockchain, what is the connection? I'm having trouble understanding.
Right. Thank you. That's a very good question that rises regularly in our discussions. So, as you can imagine, there is a little bit of disconnect between the physical work of art and the blockchain. But for that, there are quite a few companies that are working to resolve that. So, for example, there is a company called TechSmart where you can put some sort of chip on your work of art or a sticker with a digital code, and then use this code in your registry so that you definitely know that this is this painting. And if the chip is attached, then so you have this digital record for a physical work of art. And there are quite a few companies that are working in this field. But I guess there are still opportunities for this area to be developed more.
It looks to me very primitive, right? I mean, of course, you have some product, then you put a chip on it, or you put some sticker on it, or some barcode on it, and you just say that, okay, this is now in the blockchain database. Now you can look it up, right?
Yeah.
But always the question comes to me when I'm thinking of, I'm sure there are certain companies like VeChain, there are a couple of companies that are doing some creative stuff. What I want to hear from you is that, is there any more advanced technologies are happening, right? Just, what if I just take the barcode out of the art? Is it decoupled now? Can I do fake now? I just wanted to give you a little bit more view. If you can give us, that will be appreciated.
Right. So, yes, of course, you can take off probably this chip and then you don't know what's going on with that, right? I think there are ongoing developments in this area, and this area is definitely something that needs to be worked on more. But you also have to look for the reason why, a person who puts a tag on their work of art and they keep it, they want, they want it to be tracked. They want it to be authentic. So their reasoning is kind of, they don't want, if somebody else in the future will take it off, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they have a good reason to do that, actually.
Like in China, right? Baby food and all, right? They are like, it's art is a different thing, but just to give you an idea, right? They're trying to give tamper-proof sealing so that if you try to open the seal or try to do something,
Right.
it destroys itself, right? So I'm trying to look for some, if you know of any little bit advanced technologies they're trying to use in art world, because art being very expensive, millions of dollars when there's a lot of money floating around.
Yeah, that's true. One of them I think is called Smart Water. So it's like a watermark. So the watermark you wouldn't be able to take off that easily. So there are some things that are going on in that. Yeah, like a watermark is, I guess it's a little bit better, maybe example. But I was just speaking with another person, and they're developing a special chip that you cannot that easily take off. So that's also a possibility.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
Although I'm not into art, but it was very interesting. I had heard about a token that's called VeChain, and it's to follow luxury good. So when you buy a luxury good, there's probably a number or a chip, as that gentleman mentioned, and so that transaction, the name of the person who bought that bag is now on the blockchain, and if something happens to that bag, and as we were mentioning, then it would be probably it's possible to include it in the rules that from the moment that that bag does not have the chip is almost damaged, it's possibly lost, it's possibly, I mean, something has happened, but the fact that it was the history of the life of that good is on the chain allows you to narrow down to a time slots where that problem happened, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very similar.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So you presented all those. I mean, I really hadn't thought about the tokenization of that piece of art. It's very interesting. Which is there a token that you think is or is there a token that is most advanced in that field, in that area, or is that just companies, isolated companies who have nice ideas, but there's one token?
For now, it's just the companies that are doing that. There is no one token that's in the market.
Yeah.
Which one? Art token, but that's the Massinas. Yeah, so that's this company.
So Messina has that art token. That
Yeah,
maybe
they're
does
gonna
something-
release it. They haven't even released it. It's
Okay.
still in the process.
Yeah, because I hadn't realized the market was that in need. It's almost like this is more in need of blockchain than some of the high-tech fields. So that would be.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised that nobody has launched a very strong ICOs in that field. So this is very interesting. A lot of potential.
A lot of potential, but the market is still very conservative. So when we host these talks with the art market professionals coming in, first of all, I think around 60, 70% they don't even know what blockchain is. So we are doing blockchain 101 lectures, for example. Yeah, sure.
Come to my mind. Is it because it's high dollar value? Art is all high dollar value, right? It's just something abstract. But people have a lot of money. It's high dollar value, right? So is this adoption, to your point, right? The adoption is not coming so fast. Is it because of the operation challenges that we talked about back in terms of how to associate this art
Yeah.
with this? Or is it going to disrupt the art dealers who has a lot of money at stake? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I think much more the second point because, the market is conservative. There are a lot of people who are not interested in the transparency of the art market. But over the past half a year, I see so many new companies coming up. And so many conservative art market players who have actually founded these companies, especially Artery. So the Artery, Nan Decken, he's a veteran of the art world, and he's super open to that. He's very excited about the idea, and his network of friends and colleagues and clients are excited about it as well now. So I think that now is a good time to jump into this field.
There we go. We talked before about AI. There's a lot of work being done with AI and art. I mean, it's CIS. They magnifying. They look at the. They can identify the dye. Of the paint that was used. Were those chemicals available in the 16th century? Was that pigment created even? So they can. There's a lot of experts that work in Sotheby's and Christie's. And this is 40 years of experience looking at art and being able to authenticate it. And you'll never be able to replace the human element in that. Once you get the experts to authenticate a work of art, you can then record it on the blockchain. And it isn't the end-all be-all solution, but it adds another very valid layer of authentication. And then regardless, there's always going to be it's akin to supply chain. But you're always going to have, the more parts that you add, the more pieces you can game, right? So if you put an IoT device on fish that is imported from Japan, and you want to know that this is the real sushi that you can have, say the temperature has to stay below freezing throughout the journey, right, to New York. Well, the truck driver, if his truck breaks down right here, he can go to 7-Eleven and get a bag of ice and put ice right on the sensors and game that system. So there's always going to be this possibility. So it's just it's another layer. It definitely moves the whole issue forward. But people are definitely buying into it. There's as you probably know, there's a lot of problem with works of art that disappeared around World War II, and then they reemerge 30 or 20 years later. And nobody knows if they're real or not. So there's missing data on that. So there's, this when you're using AI to identify brushstrokes, you teach the machine to look at the work and analyze it. Use the experts, you can really get authentication, and then you record on the blockchain, and it really goes a long way to authenticating the work. So it's a very interesting space, and very lucrative. People don't know about it, but it's really interesting.
Just adding more data points to it, right?
Exactly.
To bring closer to the truth. That's all you can do.
Yeah, and Sotheby's just recently purchased an AI startup, so they're looking into this space as well, for example. So more traditional players.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is interesting. I've been actually having done a lot of research on the art, tokenization of the art, because this is another sort of derivative, right? We all like the art, we all like to invest in it, right? But we can't afford it. I can afford it. to pay $500 million, let's say, in a piece of art. Nevertheless, right, it's very safe investment too, right? Because you always have a custodian who is the museum. You always have insurance, right? They insure the art. You always have the reinsurance, right? That basically cover the differences, right? The only problem is, liquidity of that asset, right? And that could actually bring the liquidity, right, to the market. So in other words, if you approach the museum, let's say, and you create a smart contract which states that if I have a 55% of the tokens, okay, then I hold the custody of the art, okay, but then I can liquidate the 45 and found my other basically arts. I mean, are you approaching basically the museums as well? Because that brings the liquidity to the markets. Other than that, they are basically just in auctions every 3-5 years, and those are private auctions. You just heard from them after a month or maybe 2 months after it happens. And you are not basically invited to those auctions. I mean, there's just 2-3 people, maybe 10 bidders, to those. Are you approaching the art holders, okay, like museums, okay, to democratize this process? So everybody can basically invest in a piece of art, which is pretty good damn investor.
Right. So Mecenas, for now, they're not working with the museums as of yet. But I think it's a great market opportunity, actually, because museums have to, there are certain works of art that are on the walls that all of us see, and it's about 40%, if I'm not wrong, of the art that museums actually own. And the rest of it is kept in the warehouses, in the storages, and so on. So some of that they really want to keep because it's valuable. There is a rotation. There are curated exhibits that creators pick from these storages. But some of them they really don't need anymore. They feel like they can get rid of them and they can sell them. But the process, it's called the accessioning of the works of art. The process is also a little bit opaque. They have to, curators have to communicate among each other, see what's there. Also, the regulations are quite strict because in most cases, I think they can only sell the work of art only to buy the new work of art. But as a business in itself, I think it's a valid business. Even if you create a platform for the museums to help the works that need to be deaccessioned, to be traded more easily, to create these peer-to-peer transactions between museums, I think that could be very valuable. Again, the industry is very conservative, so you have to have a really strong backup next to you in order for it to work. But if you do, I think that could be pretty cool. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Since there are only limited players that are working in this tokenization field right now, I think most of them are just working with either private collectors or with the galleries. So there is no one has approached the museums for tokenization of the works of art yet, but potentially for these particular works that need to be, liquidated, that could be a pretty good opportunity, I think.
Is it possible that museums can continue to show their art, but at the same time tokenize it? That's possible.
Possible.
Doesn't have to.
Yeah, but would they want to do it? How does it look for the, just speaking about the reputation of the museum? I don't know. I mean, probably wouldn't look very good if Tate Modern has their, in today's art market, I don't know, maybe in the future that's possible, but that's a little bit like a very hypothetical situation at this point, I think. All right, thank you very much.